Yeah. Firstly, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to interview for my YouTube channel and podcast.
I'm happy to. I'm happy to meet new people, putting good information out there. So it's good for me.
So I thought to tell about you and about your work to my audience.
Okay.
So can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Gareth Hughes. I run the YouTube channel Prodigia Games. I'm not currently working on an actual game project. I'm sure we'll talk about that and what I'm up to. But yeah, Prodigia Games, YouTube, Instagram, and then prodigiagames.com.
So you, what is your full-time work?
I'm a watchmaker. I repair high-end watches and things like that.
So you are into game development.
Yeah, it's always been something I've been interested in. It's a complicated question because I'm one of those people who's always kind of gravitated towards working alone. But the problem is with game development, if you work alone, there's only so much you can achieve by yourself. And that's something I'm realizing more and more. And so either I would have to work with a team of people who are kind of equally invested in the project, or I'd have to hire people because I don't want to hire anybody if I can't pay them, a fair amount. So um, it's kind of a weird position to be in. And a lot of the reason that I don't work on games full time is because of the fact that I am a little bit picky, I guess. But now with the changing landscape of things like virtual reality and stuff like that, it's really something that I don't want to miss out on at the same time.
So what is your YouTube name and your instant name is about?
Um, Basically, what it kind of started out was I was going to start working on a game, and the problem is that I tend to jump into projects that are way out of the scope of what I can do, and I usually do that with reckless abandon. And so I started the YouTube with the intent of making this game, and so that was going to be the name I was going to do it under, Prodigia Games. And so then when I started to realize that that was too big for me to tackle alone, then I started to have to look at what else I wanted to do in that kind of realm. And it was kind of right after that that I was able to finally start getting into virtual reality because of, the financial side of things. And so it's really kind of a strange situation because I don't basically I what's the best way to put it? I have a project, the most recent one that I started on there was, if I can't make a game, then what I want to do is work on game peripherals. And I actually have a camera that's mounted on the tripod that kind of records what you're doing in virtual reality, so you can put that footage together. But there's, again, a couple of things that I need to be able to fix about that. And I realized that I don't have the financial ability to get everything that I need to do that. So it's really kind of a cautionary tale about, jumping into something where you're able to. Because if you are like me and you get into stuff that's just really interesting, really good stuff, but you don't have the capability to do it, then you end up hitting all these roadblocks. And it's all things that I still want to do, but I just have to kind of take that into consideration, because otherwise you're not getting anywhere and you kind of get stuck like I did.
So Prodigia Games. So
Oh,
Prodigia Games.
oh, that's yeah. I mean, that's the name that I'm still going with that, just because I do still want to get into the game design world. Um, it's just it's in kind of a transitional state right now, if that makes sense. Trying to figure
Okay.
out exactly what the best place and way to do things is.
So who inspired you? Who inspired you to do this?
Oh wow, that's I mean, there's so many different directions that the inspiration comes from. I think the biggest thing in terms of the game development was a lot of like independent game developers, like you see online. There's Thomas Brush, there's Jonas Tyroller. A lot of people who are working by themselves and making these great things. so that was definitely an inspiration for the game side of things. And then for virtual reality, I mean, I was around back when it first kind of had the first wave back in the early 90s, and you had the big old headsets that were, 10 pounds. And definitely when the technology was too early to be useful. But even back then, I saw this is something that could change the way that we look at the world and the way that we interact with our games. So it's something that I always wanted to look into, and I'm really glad that it's kind of made a comeback. And now with Facebook coming up with a whole meta thing, with all these companies looking towards kind of a metaverse kind of existence, that really kind of changes the way that game development works, because you can start looking more at individual kind of experiences rather than you have to make a game that somebody's going to sit down and play for, 5-10 hours straight.
So, when you started creating this, are you the only person who are the founder of this?
Yes. Yeah. Nobody else was crazy enough. No, it's it was something I always wanted to do, something on the side, and I always wanted to do something technology and games related. And so with the fact that I work a full-time job, I have kids, I have the place that I work at is almost 2 hours away. So when you consider all the time that between the obligations that I have and the things that I'm not going to compromise on, time is definitely kind of the most precious thing that you have to consider. And so it was something that I knew I wanted to start, and I knew that I might get myself in this situation where it's like, well, I need to figure out exactly how this is going to balance with everything. But I mean, my wife is supportive. She's always said, she feels like I have the technical ability to do good things. It's just a matter of working out that time and that opportunity.
So, virtual reality. So, have you understood completely about this in order to create what you want?
Sorry, let me make sure I understand. What was the question?
Virtual reality. So, have you understood completely about this in order to create what you want exactly to create the game?
I mean, from the technical side of things, everything is always a learning situation, because I know the technical ability of how to create a virtual reality scene within a game designer like Unity, but in terms of designing games and designing experiences, that's kind of the easy part, because what happens is you get to the point where you have the technical capability to do whatever you want. That's where the artistic side of things comes in, and you have to know how to craft an experience that's going to resonate with people. You have to be able to say, um, like how many games have come out that are just they're technologically great, but people are, don't really care because they don't engage with it on the emotional level or on, whatever level they're looking for. And that's really where I'm at, is that I could just put out a game, put together a project in Unity, put something out in a weekend, and then I could say, oh yeah, I've published a game. But I value people's time and their attention too much to give them something less than the best that I can. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be something that I can honestly say I've put myself and my whole being into, so that they can have that experience. So to kind of go back to your question, I mean, yes, I know how to create those from a technical point of view, but I think that's where I'm really, I don't want to say stuck, but where I'm really being very careful and treading very deliberately is when it comes to the artistic side.
Do you spend time in understanding virtual reality games in order to develop your own game?
I do. I mean, I wish I had the time and the finances to get every game that's out there, but I try to follow kind of the big ones that are happening, what the big trends are, because on the one hand, you shouldn't just go by what's trending, but you should understand what the audience is wanting. And so, there are certain games that I feel like kind of transcend the everyday. It's like with any games. It happened with consoles. It's happened with PC. You have kind of different tiers of games, and there are some that stand above others because of certain aspects. And it's not necessarily that they're the most technically sophisticated. Some of them are just, if you look at games like Skyrim, for example, no Bethesda game that's come out has been graphically at the top of where it could be, but the scale of them is so impressive that you can't help but respect the effort that was put into making this entire world. And so with virtual reality, I mean, it's still such a young medium that there's a lot to see where that's going to go. But one, for example, that I evangelize about all the time is Boneworks, and the company that made it, Stress Level Zero, because they worked to, with every game that they've made, they've worked to revolutionize the medium in some way. So for the first ones, it was just the fact that they used a physical space as kind of the main menu instead of just putting a screen in front of you. And so from the beginning, you're dropped into an environment, and I feel like there's something human about the fact that when you're put in what you see as a room, that you want to interact with it differently than if you're sitting at what you think is a computer screen or something. And so Boneworks was really where I was just so impressed with what they did because of the physics system that they used. It really just kind of flew in the face of everything that people expected from virtual reality. Is that they broke a lot of rules with that game, and even though it's kind of a first attempt into that, I think it freed up other people to say, wow, we can start to challenge some of these things, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, then we're creating a new direction for the entire medium. So I think that it's definitely important to follow what people are doing, and give respect to those people who are pushing the envelope, for sure.
So you are creating a product for the virtual world. So and which is called as the virtual reality. So are you good in understanding the reality in order to create the virtual product?
Let me make sure that I understand. So when you say understanding the reality, like, are you talking about the reality that we live in, or the kind of the reality of of what it means to make a project of that style?
You mentioned that you put concentration or the focus on the emotional side of the people who plays the game. So it's very important, right? To in order to create a game, you need to understand the reality in order to make them connect with the game that you are creating.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that, and that's something I think is part of the reason why I gravitated towards working alone, is because for a long time I didn't have a grasp of understanding other people. And I think that it's something that people consider to be inherent. Either you're good at talking to people and interacting with people, or you're not. And I don't think now that that's the case. I think that everything is a practice and a skill, and building that emotional understanding of where other people are coming from, the ability to communicate, the ability to um, just understand people's motives and what people want from their experiences. I think that could be a class in any college right alongside the technical things. And I'm sure with some of these game design schools, they're doing that there, because at the end of the day, any content that you create, I heard it said the other day, it really resonated with me. It says it has to do one of three E's. It has to either entertain, educate, or encourage. And so in the case of someone like you, for example, I think that looking at your videos that you've put out, it's a little bit of everything. I think there's a very strong educational side of it. And of course, it's entertaining to hear stories from people. And that in itself has kind of an encouraging subtext, even if the person isn't necessarily saying you can do this. And so when it comes to that, I think that that's really a something you have to balance, because for my channel, for example, it's kind of been, I try to equal parts educate and entertain. I think maybe I succeed a little more in the education side of things, but then when it comes to the entertainment part, especially with games themselves, that's kind of the main focus. And so if you can put together a good entertaining video, if you can put together a good entertaining game, that's great from a technical point of view. But yeah, you definitely have to understand the expectations that people have, and that way you will be able to hopefully entertain them. Everything is always, it's like comedy. They say that one person will laugh, the other person won't. So you have to also know who you're trying to reach with what you're doing.
So you're trying to balance the emotion and the logic. Technology wise, you're great. You're also getting good compliments for what the knowledge that you have on tech side. So, and you're also understanding, like you mentioned, the three E's, the observation that you said. So you also know what people want. So how you already said, it is very important to balance it. So you see the trending games. You observe that the what is working now. So what you are going to deliver with the product that you are doing. I saw your YouTube channel. I was connected with the education side and the entertaining side of yours.
Okay, so well, I mean, thank you that you like that you see that, because that's what I'm going for. I mean, whenever I make a video, it's kind of the same thing. I've had to take a step back from everything. It was actually, I was considering just giving up on the whole thing for a while. So when you connected with me, was actually, you caught me right when I was kind of deciding, no, I'm going to go with it. Because the uh, going into the whole aspects of, like we talked about, the schedule, the financial side, and the fact that there's no clear route to monetizing what it is that I'm doing. Not that everything should be about money, but when you have bills to pay, you have to figure something out. And so for a while I was thinking, I mean, is this something that if I'm going to do it, I have to go into it and really do it, or I have to just say, this isn't for me, and I have to find some other route. And I really, from the beginning, I love making videos, and I love virtual reality. I love talking about, even if I was just reviewing other games, I love the whole culture around it. And I realized, if I did anything else, if I started another channel, for example, the watches that I work on, it would be a surprisingly easy route to monetization, because of the fact that you have Amazon affiliates, and luxury goods have a high percentage, so you could create a whole thing there. But it's not something I'm passionate about. It's not something that, when I talk about it, that comes through in what I say. And I realized that I'm going to create something that I want people to watch. I want them to know that it's 100% what I love. And so as far as the videos go, I mean, yeah, it is. It's that I respect people's time too much to waste it with something less than what I, same with the game development, what I can give them has to be the best that I can do. And so, sorry, I'm blanking on where that question was going.
So what you did till now and what you're going to do further.
So well, I have all of these, like, I have this mental box full of projects, and I definitely don't want to abandon any of them, at least until I know that there's something that they couldn't go somewhere. But I do recognize that a lot of them are in the category of, you cannot do this alone. And then on the other hand, we have all of this new technology, and that's kind of where my focus has been recently, is understanding and jumping back into what the new technologies are, because with the like with the whole metaverse thing that's happening, I think that the role of game designers and game developers, the old market will still exist, but there's going to be an entirely new kind of avenue that people are going to have to consider, and that is that you are not creating a game in an encapsulated sense like it used to be. You're creating experiences that are much more individual and much more kind of detail oriented to, the way that I see it is the first experiences that you're probably going to see on a metaverse kind of game platform would be kind of like what you see in VR now, but kind of dovetailed into the environment. So you go through a door and all of a sudden you're in this experience, and you'll kind of jump in and out of things like that. And of course, this is all so beginning. This is the very beginning of the road for a lot of these technologies, because you have to consider things like blockchain, which a lot of people think of as cryptocurrencies and the whole NFT art thing that's happening. But there is also a big gaming component to that, because when you consider that you can put NFTs and those can be read by game platforms, then you can start to have things that you as a gamer and as a customer of a particular company carry on through title after title and experience after experience. And so it's all becoming very kind of I guess, for lack of a better word and to be cliche, decentralized. It's not like there's these big game companies that are in charge of everything anymore. And even independent game developers are having to look at, well, what's my route that I'm going? And that's kind of where I am. And that's why I'm reluctant to jump into yet another project specifically without fully understanding the technology of what's going to be possible. So that's, if anything, I've taken a step back to become more educated, and that way I can move forward in a rational way. And at the same time, start to communicate with other game developers and people who are in that similar situation, so that a community can start to be built that that works together to see everybody succeed.
So about the technology side, what the hardware and the software that you have used?
Right now, I'm still running on an Oculus Rift S, which is a little bit out of date, considering you have the Quest 2 out now, and a lot of the newer platforms that are either coming out or are announced. But as far as I'm concerned, the way that I see it is that, what's the best way to put it? If you go back to when games first came out, you look at like the game culture of the 80s and 90s. And it was a very fixed, specific thing. And there was kind of a run up to more and more advanced technology. And then the internet came, and it kind of shook everything up. And so in a lot of ways, the first generation of games that had internet connectivity, before it hit that mainstream, was things like MUDs and text-based games. So almost going back to kind of the games of the 80s, but with internet connectivity. And I kind of see that happening with virtual reality, is that we've kind of taken a step back. It's not all about the best graphics. It's not all about the most intense situations, which some games do attempt and do pull off very well. But when it's a technology as young as this one, I think that there's going to be so much competition between different platforms that are trying to become the dominant one that it doesn't make sense to get into the newest thing. I mean, if you have the money to do it, go for it, I say. But if you're in a situation where you can put your resources towards learning more about the core of what it is, I would rather do that than put that money towards getting the next greatest thing. Because the experience might be, even if it's twice as good, does that mean that it's going to be worth not using those resources for something that I could be more practical with? So people who, if you only have a Rift S, don't feel bad, don't feel like you need to get the next best thing. Just keep using what you have, and when the opportunity arises, then you may find that you buy the next one and it becomes obsolete in a week, because of something else that's coming out. And I think just because, I mean, being in my 30s, I spent my whole 20s doing that, is get the best thing, and then the company that made the best thing 1 year doesn't exist in 2 years. So like, I'd say just be practical, be pragmatic, and really determine what your priority is.
So what is the specialty of your game?
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm not working on a particular project right now because I don't want to kind of pigeonhole myself into any one thing. If I had to say kind of what a general focus that I would want to be, I would say I want to create games that inspire wonder, which I know is a very vague term. It could be that you're floating in space and you see the scale of things around you. That could be in one sense, but then also as going to like what I do as my day job as a watchmaker, there are mechanisms that I see that these are designed by people, and I'm taking them apart and working on them, and there's a sense of discovery, a sense of this is incredibly complex, and I have to look at it as I'm taking it apart and putting it together to see just how sophisticated the thought behind it was. And that in itself, I feel like, is also a sense. So you have like natural wonder, and you have kind of the wonder of the capability of what humanity can do. And either one to me is equal, because I think that that our contribution as people, not to get too philosophical, but our contribution as people is to learn and grow and create more sophisticated things and experiences, while being responsible in doing so, obviously. And so if I had to say what I want my game to do, is that I want it to basically do what a good movie or a good book would do, and that's reach whoever it is that I determined to be the target audience in a way that I aspire to do. So if oh my goodness, see, that's why it's a complicated question, because it works towards the question of who is it that you want to reach. And obviously, I think as educators, as entertainers, we want to reach everybody, but you have to determine what does your message resonate with, what people does your message reach. And so for me, I think that it would be kind of the same people. If you see Boneworks the way that I did, where they took the risks that they did and the experience that it is, as not just a good game experience, but also as something that's genuinely impressive. That's probably the kind of people that I would be looking to reach, and therefore probably it would be from a technical point of view that I would be trying to not necessarily impress people, but to touch them in some way.
So you're working on different projects, and you understand what is working for games to be reached to more people, to be connected with more people. And you also are mentioning the responsibility, and you're thinking about the humanity, and you're thinking about what is useful, and you're thinking about entertainment, education, and the philosophical side of thing. So you look the mixture of everything.
I try to, and I mean, and that's That's I think, especially the more experiences you have in life, the more you start to understand that nothing is a binary jump from one thing to the next. Everything has significance. Everything has weight, um, and especially the experience of having children. Um, it really makes you realize that from the moment that you start trying to do anything, whether whatever it is that you're drawn to do, um, when you first start, you think of it, it's probably when you're in school. So you think of it as, okay, these are the classes that I need to take. I check these boxes, I get these grades, and I move on to the next thing. But when you start to look at things, for example, my college degree is in graphic design and animation. But I happened to graduate in the middle of the 2000s when the economy was in, the middle of a recession. And so nobody was hiring artists. And so that's how I got into watches, is that when I was working my way through college, I was doing batteries at the local Sears there, and then moved back to California, and I found a job in watch repair, and that's where I've been ever since. And so the things that you kind of fall into, and the things that you are kind of motivated to push yourself into, aren't necessarily always the same thing. And you have to understand, again, going back to balance, you have to figure out, well, what provides versus what fulfills me. And even though I haven't finished a game, even though I haven't, there's any number of things that I've done that any rational person would say, why am I still pushing at this? Why am I still going? Why do I still make videos if I'm not achieving a coherent goal? And I think that's a rational way of looking at it, especially if you don't have a position where I am, where I do have a job that keeps me afloat while I can mess around with all my nonsense. But on the other hand, you start to realize that this is what fulfills me on a deeper level. And if I spend several days in Unity trying to figure out a portal system for a game that I don't have an idea for, I'm just trying to figure out this mechanic because I love solving the puzzle, then the question is, does that have value to me? And if it gives me that sense of achievement, then I think that personally it has value. And if what you're doing does the same, then you should pursue that. And it's yes, get paid to do it if you can, and don't give up on it. And I think the main thing for me is I always thought of it as a personal thing. And the more that I see it, is that I realize I have to push myself into, how can I take this and use it to provide value to others? Because if you're getting the sense of achievement from doing it on its own, then using that to create some value, some entertainment, some inspiration for others, that's where the money comes. If you chase it as a job, if you chase it as something, how many people work in the game development industry and are completely unsatisfied with what they do, because it becomes, and that's what I worried about, is that I worried that the same thing would happen to me with this as what happened with watches, is that it's what I do to make a living, but I don't feel the passion for it because it's something that I have to do and I don't have control over what I do with it. So pursue that for yourself. That's what I say. And be rational, be sensible. If you have a family to take care of, obviously put them, give them the priority and make sure that they have food on the table and a roof over their heads. But if it comes to something that fulfills you personally, a lot of people will talk down to, oh, it's just a hobby. It's just something that you do on the side. It's like, yeah, that might be for now, but you might just be waiting for the right catalyst to push you into something that gives you more meaning, gives you more opportunities, whether that be in a kind of a number of subscribers, viewers sense, an attention kind of sense, or a financial. So I say, do what drives you, and always be willing to learn more about it, because anything new, anything out of the ordinary, people are going to say, oh, it's silly. it's like, well, everything's silly until it works, and then you're rich, and then all of a sudden, So, uh, I mean, I could again talk about the philosophy of it and what is good from a lifestyle point of view, but at the end of the day, that's what I say: do what you love.
So you understood the difference between I want to do and I have to do.
Yeah, and there have been probably 4 or 5 times where I've tried to quit, the artistic side of things. That because I mean, going back to when I was younger, my older brother, he's when it comes to traditional art, he is the head honcho of the family. He could draw circles around me any day. But he was in a class. This had to have been maybe 2000, 2001. He was in a class for the local college, and he was able to get a copy of 3D Studio Max. And as soon as I saw that, as soon as I had a chance to work with that, it's like, oh, this is game over. Like, there is nothing that's going to fulfill me like 3D art, you know, from this point on. And of course, at that point, it was primitive. It was just I put a cylinder with a little cone on top, and it's like, look, I made a castle. But from a perspective of at that point a kind of mid-teenager, somebody who's never understood what computers could do, then it's like, oh well, this is the future. I see that this is the future, and I see that happening with virtual reality now. And of course, so I've tried to say, well, this isn't rational. Why am I doing this? Why don't I just focus on something practical? But it always draws me back in, and I think that's the indication of something that you need to pursue, something that you have to, from a fulfillment point of view, you have to continue to make the attempt.
So where this deep understanding is coming from?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that from a technical side of things, my stepdad, he's an aerospace engineer, so he's always had that. I grew up around that technical mind, very strong in mathematics, things like that. My grandfather was a machinist. It's just something that, when other kids were out playing with toys, when I was a little kid, my grandpa would just give me some pieces of wood and some nails and say, here, make something. And so we spent, I think, so many of our formative years, my brother and I, that we were just encouraged to just take what you have and be imaginative with it. And so I can't say that there's any one person above any of the rest. All of my family's always encouraged, all of my siblings and myself to be very imaginative and to not put ourselves into a position where we think of things as silly because they're not practical, which some people would, have been raised the opposite. They say, oh, if you're not creating something practical, then it has no value. And so I think that that's a lot of where my background comes from. My early experiences with 3D art, the fact that I think that I grew up in a very specific time when kind of the rise of CG art in movies started to become more and more realistic, because you have the early stuff, but it was kind of campy and not very good. And then you start to see how realistic it gets. I think the apex of that in my teenage years is looking at like the Lord of the Rings movies, is the technology that they use to pull that off, to somebody in the state where their mind is still deciding, well, what is it that I need to do? What is it that I love, that I have to pursue? And I think that everybody has some experience in their life where they see something and they're like, that is, that sparks that sense of wonder that I need to look more into. And for everybody, it's different, and that's what's great. And that's why I don't try and tell anybody what they should do. I just say that whatever you're doing that gives you that feeling, that's what you should do.
So I connected with what you said about CG, because when I was doing my graduation, my bachelor's degree in computer science and engineering in my computer graphics subject, I got 65 out of 70 marks. So I was very good in understanding it. So
Yeah.
my so I can understand where you're coming from, and when you're saying a lot of rings and taking that as an example, I can understand that. So what you are going to do in coming days, and what you want to say to my audience who are watching this and listening to our conversation from anywhere on this planet?
Oh, well, in the coming, I would say the next couple of months, I do want to start becoming more regular again on creating videos. Not necessarily with some crazy idea of projects that I'm going to, because that's what I do is I come up and I say, I know I've been away for a while because I'm working on a crazy project, but here's a different crazy project. And I want to move away from that. Even if it's just, looking at what's really impressive about the current VR games that are coming out, what kind of in the same way that we were talking about with Boneworks, what games are challenging the status quo, what games are, I don't necessarily want to do straight up game reviews, but I want to respect and recognize those people who are doing something different. So I think that that's definitely something I want to look into, and then otherwise just spending some time educating myself on the different technologies that are, I think, going to become a big thing. I want to find out what the different I think the biggest platform that I know of is AltSpace in terms of virtual reality. I did an interview on there with a podcaster, and that was a crazy experience, and that was definitely something I want to look into. And so I think I would say the next several months is going to be about educating myself and about finding those different routes that my skills fit best into. And then in terms of what I would say to your audience, because I know that there's such a diversity of the people that I've seen you have on your show are so there's from such a wide range of different disciplines. I would say that first of all, like I said, just love what you do, and if you don't love it, don't do it. And obviously, if you have to work, you have to work. I understand that, but don't feel like you have to be pushed into something for practicality's sake. Don't feel like you have to be pushed into something for some quick gain of some kind. Find out what it is that fulfills you on a deeper level. And for some people, that may look strange to others. Somebody who's very deep into programming, the finer points between how a program works could be what drives you. And to others, they say, well, I don't, if you're gaining a couple milliseconds here and there, what difference does it make? But to you, that could be an art form. So whatever it is that gives you that feeling, just throw yourself into it with as much capacity as you can. And I think that if we all do that, and I think that if we all do that with a mind to say, how can I use this to help others, whether it's to inspire them, whether it's to, actually help them. In the case of medical doctors, people like that, obviously you have licenses, you have things, there are regulations to follow, but, do whatever research and whatever fulfills you in that way, because I think that's how we make the world a better place.
So it's a great thing that you have like understanding about everything in the world, not just being in technology side, understanding the game side of and just being completely a programmer. So I think it's a rare people that I found you.
Well, I've noticed a lot of the people that you interview are I think that a lot of people are this way. They aren't necessarily given an outlet to share it, though. If you talk to any given person in your day-to-day life, there's always something. You have, the guy who works at the coffee shop, but on his free time, he's trying to create a cryptocurrency trading bot because, that's his thing. Or, your dentist is actually, he wants to be a musician and he plays saxophone on the weekends. Everybody has something that's not to say that you shouldn't be fulfilled with your job, but sometimes what you do and the way that you make your living leaves a hole that needs to be filled somehow. And that's just something that you just have to find out what that is for you. And I think that for a lot of people, playing games is that. And so that's why I think that there should always be a place for all kinds of different game developers. And I don't say they should all be like me, where you just sit, behind the scenes and just wait for the right opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I think that everybody is dynamic, everybody has potential, and everybody needs to be able to find a way to fulfill that potential.
So I'm sure when the product comes from your imagination or from your creativity, I'm sure that from your passion, I'm sure that is going to be very have great quality, have reaching the responsibilities, and you're caring people. That's a rare thing that any technologists have. You're caring and you're thinking about all the sides of the world. So I think, and also you're saying that it is very important for any person to do what they love. That itself shows that how much you love what you're doing, and how much you're interested in improving your skills, and in order to create. You have very, I think, very intensified ambition.
I appreciate that. And it's funny because sometimes when you're in a position like this, when you jump from thing to thing and you kind of jump into things that are too big for you, it almost makes you feel like you're not ambitious because you don't succeed. It feels like there's so much that's between success to someone being that ambitious. And it's like, there's somebody who wants to go out and learn how to play Beethoven on the piano, and if they don't succeed, does that mean they're not ambitious? It's like there's what's the best way to put it? Ambition is great, and it just has to be tempered with discipline. That's the main thing. Looking at you, for example, is that the amount of interviews that you've done and the amount of just in a lot of ways people would say your hustle, is that you push to find as many perspectives as you can. And it's like, what's the end goal? Who knows? But you're looking for that message in each one. And I think that that's kind of the key. I could see somebody like you becoming an author, for example. Say you took all of the things that you, because I think were you working on a book? Was it on your website? I saw that there was a link for a book interview, but I couldn't remember if you were working on one or what that was.
No, I write in my blogs.
Oh,
right
okay.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, for someone like you, I see, for example, looking at someone like Simon Sinek or what's his name? Why am I blanking on it? The one who did the 4-Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss. A lot of the best authors, I mean, they're creative, yes, but they're also aggregators, and they have an intense passion for meeting new people, finding out what drives them, and kind of looking for patterns. And I feel like that's how things are with your channel, is that you interview somebody who's retired out of electrical engineering, but then you interview somebody like me who, to all intents and purposes, looks like some crazy person just rambling in his basement. And so it's like, there's so many different people so many different perspectives that you get that, I think that's, and obviously I won't ascribe what your passion is to you because that's personal, but like I see that you have a passion for learning about people, about what drives them, about the patterns of what works in people's lives and what helps them reach that fulfillment. So yeah, I mean, I had a whole idea around that, but at this point, that's the best I can say, is that I recognize the same in you.
So one last thing I want to tell to my audience about you is what is driving you to make things done? What is motivating you? What is pushing you to do things? What is making you to wake up in the morning and do a lot of things that you want to do?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a complicated question because I think, as with anything, it's changed over time. Is that in growing up with games, like, uh, even going back to the mid '90s, my dad was into the flight simulators where he had the joystick, and of course it was like 320 by 240 pixels on the screen. But to my young mind, that was the newest technology. This was this sense of wonder, and I think that's where that comes from. Is I want to create that sense for others, and it's difficult because things are more sophisticated. So there's always that drive that I want to do that. But now, having had children, I also see how they see the world, and how kind of I guess the idea of parenting refreshes your perspective, and it makes you realize that the things that you see and the things that you take for granted aren't the same for everybody. And so I think that what drives me at the end of the day is to give people, even if it's just for a little while, a sense of happiness and wonder. And I think that I have a lot of work to do in learning how, what that means to different people, because again, that's one of my biggest things to learn is the emotional and the interpersonal side of things. But I think that the world is becoming a more emotionally adept and interpersonal place because of the widespread internet. The fact that I can be talking to you at 8:30 in the morning here, and it's 10 o'clock at night there, but we're sharing these ideas, and it's even at something as simple as TikTok. People say, oh, it's for kids, it's just something that teenagers do. But having seen it, I think that there are stories that I've seen people tell about their lives that even 5 years ago they would have kept hidden. Is that I think people are becoming more open. I think people are becoming more transparent, I guess. And that, of course, opens you up to the question of, well, what if somebody wants to take advantage of my vulnerability? It's like, I think that the key to humanity is to be able to be vulnerable and to be transparent with others. And so that's really why I agreed to come on here, because, everybody wants to come on and say, look at what I've done, look at what I've achieved. And I wanted to be able to have somebody out there who may need to see somebody say, I've gotten myself stuck so many times and I don't know exactly what I'm doing, and I feel lost a lot of times, but I just keep going and I just keep searching for that. So, in a long way, I guess that's what drives me, is that I want to reach the people who need to hear it, I guess.
So that's amazing. Even I connected with what you said, because being authentic, uh, 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 being themselves online, what exactly they are today. The internet, the wide range of internet is allowing them to uh, uh, open themselves and say what they feel, what they think, what they felt. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great thing that you mentioned, and I'm sure by listening to your words, people who have the same imagination that you have, I connected already, because I have the same. I am driving my car in the same way where you are driving,
Yeah,
so I
no,
connected with.
yeah, no, that's good. It's a good perspective to have, I think, is, just to be open, whatever it is. And there are times where I get set in my ways, and I try my best to, to assess that and say, wait, is what I'm thinking and what I'm doing, it is it genuine, and is it taking everybody else's perspective into account? And so that's the best we can do. We're human,
Awesome. So, thanks for giving me your valuable time and spending your valuable experience with my audience. And your words will uh, not only just creates content. It also is going to create content for a lot of people's content. I mean, it adds value to their lives. Your experience or your words may change the person, the way they think, the way they do things. Not only who are into technology, uh, the non-technical people also will connect with what you said. And I hope you continue doing what you're doing, and I hope a lot of things on this planet will get affected because of you positively. And
Well, I appreciate you having me on too, and I think that I think that if anything, the fact that you are providing this platform for so many different people, especially a lot of, I have a channel already and all that, but I think there's a lot of people who you've given a voice to that really didn't plan on doing video, or didn't, they maybe had their profiles and everything, but they weren't reaching out necessarily as much as you have taken their message and brought it to people. So I think that's, I appreciate you giving myself and other people that opportunity as much as you appreciate having me on, and I think that's definitely something that moving forward is like I said, is the future, is people connecting with people, sharing those messages, and just hopefully resonating with just that one person that needs it.
so, at last, what is your observation about my videos and me talking with different country people who are into different professions? I'm a software engineer. I did masters in software engineering and I did graduation in computer science and engineering. I understood computer networks in my bachelor's
Sorry.
degree. Yeah, I understood how the computers are connected and how this information transfer is happening in between computers using routers, all different devices. Uh, how this transmission is taking place. So then I decided to understand the connectivity between human beings, the relationships, the emotions, their experiences. So I just wanted to understand so that I can be the great technologist. If I create a product or if I work on a product, I can give the quality of information which makes the product look great and will connect with more people who are into more uh, countries. So what do you say? This what is your observation?
um the main thing that I've seen, because I've only been able to watch, because I've tried to watch as many as I can since we started talking, and I tried to watch a selection of different ones, not just everybody from the US or everybody from one place or another. And I think that there's, with everything, there's cultural differences, there's kind of differences in the way that people are raised. For example, here in Southern California, we have kind of that what you consider the traditional American culture, but also there's a huge influence from Mexico. And actually, my wife's family, a whole side of her family is Mexican, and my stepmom is Mexican. So like growing up in that kind of um, diversity, you start to realize that sometimes the way that people talk about different things and the way that they their perspectives on different things don't necessarily mean that they're like it means, what's the best way to put it? There are some undercurrents that go through humanity as a whole, and culture sits on top of that. And so you get different perspectives and you get that, but it's, at the end of the day, what I see with your content is that so many people are first of all, a lot of them are working to try and help people, um, in whatever capacity they have. And I think that goes back to talking about what drives you, is that if you can find what drives you with what helps others and you bring that together, then that's the best way that it can go. And I see that the various different people that you have on, in some way or another, whether they're doing it consciously or not, that is what what they're after. And so in terms of how you can bring that message to more and more people, honestly, I think that you just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep bringing as many different perspectives as you can. I would say try and find those people. What's the best way to put it? Trying to find those people who are exemplary of somebody who maybe comes from a group that isn't traditionally considered to be, somebody who lives out in somewhere that's very rural, but is working on a technical background or is working on computer science. I was actually, the other day, it blew my mind. I didn't have any idea, but from what I heard, 24% of people in Nigeria are invested in cryptocurrency. And it's something, as an American, you don't think about that. You don't think of, the way that these technologies are going to be changing the world. And I mean, I've known for a while that it's going to be a big thing, but the fact, the adoption that you see around the world and the way that it's changed, because here we have the systems that we have, and it has downsides, but I think that the way that it could fundamentally change the lives of people in other countries is absolutely, for me, is a great thing. At heart, I'm a globalist. I want people to be able to work together wherever they're from, whatever they're doing. And I see things like that. And I think that someone like you just has, the more and more that you get these perspectives, the more opportunity you have to bring that to a wider audience and make everybody see that these are the things that we can work together with. These are the things that we can build. I mean, it's a kind of some would say a silly dream to say that we could have this worldwide utopia where people work together and it's cooperative. But I think that at heart, people want to work together. I think that there's a lot of things that are put in our way to drive us apart and to tell us that, oh, this person is not somebody we should trust, or this person, this culture has pitted against this culture. And it's, to me, looking at it on a human level. One of my other passions is language learning. So I've got, people I talk to in France, people I've started with Italian. And so, there's, the more you talk to people around the world, they're the same. They want to take care of their families. They want to have a good life. They want to help other people have a good life if they can. And it's these artificial constructed rivalries that drive people apart. And so someone like you is like the one who goes across the borders and goes from one side to the other and say, this is what people are thinking, this is what people are saying. And in so many cases, it's the same thing, is that we want to be good. We want success. We want advancement of technology. Not everybody, but most people, because technology makes life easier. And so in your case, the way that I see it is from looking at it from a software perspective, you're the server that has all the API keys for all these different things that this site, you aggregate all of that data and you just say, well, this is humanity boiled down to its essence. This is what we can take and is a universal message. And so that's what I say, is just keep doing what you're doing, because the more perspectives we get, the more that becomes just like a mixing of different views. The individual views and the sharp edges are all worn off of each of them. And you end up with, how did all these fit together, like the puzzle that they are.
So that's an amazing observation. I'm sure if my contribution helps in developing a positive AI for this planet, so that will be great. So I'm sure in coming days you do something that connects with more people. The product that you're working, the projects that you're working, the energy that you're putting on in different things, I'm sure that creates the same energy that connects with more people, because that universal perspective actually helps. And that's why the reason I think we are here and we are connecting with each other. We are doing great things together, and this is a great message that we are sending through this conversation. So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and also can I put this video and audio clip on my podcast, website, internet, my social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yeah, whatever you want to use it for.
Yeah. And you want me to share your web links, your YouTube channel links, and your social media links to my audience?
That would be good. Yeah, I mean, mostly just the YouTube and Instagram. That's kind of where I'm most active. I have a page on Facebook, but it's the algorithm there is not great, so I don't think most people who follow it actually even see the posts anyway. So yeah, mostly that's been my focus is the YouTube page and Instagram. Because I think I'm going to redo the site anyway, so that's down the road. But yeah, definitely. I mean, if you want to share it, I would appreciate it. And yeah, just whatever you think will help people. You can use this for your whatever will serve that purpose.
So definitely. So in future, if you have anything to say that helps anybody, or if you want to share anything, or if you want to talk about particular thing, I'll be ready. Even if I work in any country right now, I'm in India. If I get a work
Okay.
opportunity in other country, definitely I want to talk with you and tell something that your message to my audience again. If you give me opportunity again.
Oh yeah, I would definitely. I mean, I appreciate being on today, and I'd be happy to, if it's going to bring value to your audience, I'm always happy to share, whatever I can, and likewise, if as things move forward, if there's something interesting happening, then I would be happy to share it with you and let you, let you see how things are going, because now you're part of the journey. And now in their own way, your audience is part of the journey as well.
So thank you, Chris. Keep going, keep doing what you love, and make people happy.
Yeah, you as well. And it was great being on. Thank you so much. And I think I don't even know. I haven't been paying attention to this time, but oh yeah, I guess about an hour. I
Yeah.
was gonna say it felt like it went so fast, but I was worried it was gonna be like 2 hours. I was like, oh my goodness. But no, that's how good conversations are. So
Yeah. So thank
but
you, Gareth. Yeah, I'm sure this creates effect in some people and helps them in their growth.
I hope so. And I think that if they just keep watching your stuff, that'll just keep helping. So all right,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.